So growing up, I didn't have many positive role models, role models in my life, and so that's why I decided to do this speech on my late grandfather, Paul Filter. He's one of the few positive male influences I have in my family, and so that's why I decided to talk about him today. The main reason I'm paying tribute to this person, obviously growing up in Europe, I grew up in Europe, in France and England with an American mother, so I wasn't very close to much of my American family with my aunts, my sister, my aunts and my uncles, or any of my cousins. But my grandfather was one of the people I was close with. I think one of the main reasons I was close with is that we had a lot in common. We're both sort of shy, yet funny at times. We both like sports. He played football, high school football, American football. He was a defensive captain in high school. I played rugby. I was captain in high school here in England. We were both sort of like rebels. He got kicked out of one school. I got kicked out of one school for bad behavior. Um, and I think that's why we got along well. We both had the same sense of personality. The main characteristics that best embodied Paul was his resiliency. He had a very hard life. He grew up in Nebraska, very poor during the Great Depression. Then he fought in the Second World War in Burma. He raised six kids. Only one of his, my mother, was biologically his. He raised my aunt and uncle from my grandma's first marriage. Then they divorced, and in his second marriage, he adopted his new wife's three daughters. So he raised six kids. Then later in life, he lost both legs to diabetes. But he never really lost that spirit or sense or felt sorry for himself, which I always admired. And from that, he had a great sense of humor. So when he lost both his legs to diabetes, the first thing he said was, "Coming out of hospital was, well, at least I'll save money on shoes." And so I felt I kind of inherited that the ability to use humor to diffuse tense or difficult situations in life. I've always really admired. Um, and so a couple of main ways he impacted my life was, well, obviously most of all, I wouldn't be here without him because he's my mother's father. So by association, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. And like I mentioned before, he was always a positive role model in my life. Like I said, my dad died when I was young. Both my father's parents died before I was born. He had two sisters, and he had two girl cousins. So it's all family. It was all girls. And so I had my stepdad, but we weren't that close. And then I have three sisters of my own and two nieces. So he was good to have another a male person to talk to in my life. He was always very supportive and completely selfless. During college, when I was going to Oregon State University, he was in California, but he would call me every Sunday, see how I was doing. Even though he was going through diabetes and all his medical concerns, he was mostly concerned about me. Um, and for example, like my grandmother, who lived 45 minutes away, never once called or came to visit me. And that just the difference between the two is kind of startling. And that was one of the main reasons. So both my mother's So like I said, my father's parents died before I was born. My mother's parents divorced and remarried in the 70s and knew different people. So I always had like two sets of grandparents. But like I said, my grandmother, I'm not very close with. She's the only one still alive. Her husband just died. We weren't really close. He didn't really do much or say anything. My grandfather died in 2016, and his wife, who I couldn't stand, died in 2018. But so in conclusion, he was very, very close. I chose to my special occasion speech about him because he's still a source of inspiration for me. He's someone with my blood who I can relate to, and who I saw who was like me with my DNA who can succeed in life and you can persevere in tough times. Like I said, he had diabetes. That's genetic. I could get that one day. I could lose my legs like he did, but as long as I saw that you can do it, still live a long life. He lived to be 90, 91 and live a fulfilling life. That's something I still lean on in life. So thank you for listening. I'll say thank you to my grandfather, Paul Filter.